Hi, I'm Levy, your friendly neighborhood Chibi Leviathan, and I will be recapping session 17 of Lumineth the Looming, a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. We begin the session still at the campsite, waking from our slumber and deciding to depart for the nearby town. In the middle of that night, Ezekiel had been visited by a vision in his dreams, one where he took on the place of his father, who he found out had gone deep into the ocean on the orders of the Aarakocra in order to receive this diamond made of some kind of ichor that the Aarakocra wouldn't even touch in its own hands, as it used wind power to keep it aloft. That his father had been stripped of everything in his diving suit except the lead boots that kept him on the ground deep under the ocean and pushed into it, being murdered by this Aarakocra and his minions. Awaking with that knowledge, Ezekiel was very glad in that moment that the Aarakocra was dead, realizing that he was a little bit more dangerous and manipulative than he had assumed in the first place, but still having some of those feelings of resentment towards us, even though he had been visited as well by Cirque, the Dragonborn, the night before, telling him that we had done the right thing by taking the life of this Aarakocra. He was still questioning whether it was the path he wanted to be on. So we gathered up our things and started heading down to the town. We did cut through the grasslands and end up at the back of the town, only to find that the sheer cliffscape of the area would not allow us entry on that side of town. In fact, there was only one main gate that would allow you into the town. We walked around to the front of the town, and upon attempting to enter it, we're greeted by this lovely old lady who wanted to know all of our names. And because Ezekiel's kind of a shady creature from his hometown of Goswatch, he wasn't willing to share his name and instead tried to use a pseudonym, which the old lady immediately clocked because his deception roll was completely terrible. After that, my character tried pretty much the same thing, but instead of using a full pseudonym, just simply shortened his name from Lyric to Larry. And she didn't seem to feel that that was disrespectful, since that was just kind of a nickname. Anyway, from there we entered the town, and we decided to split up and do different things, because on the road we had discussed that we wanted to travel via boat down to the Verdant Foundry. So we had two different ways that we were going to acquire the boat. Either Alaric and Patch were going to acquire travel on a boat at no cost, or Zeke wanted to steal a boat. And lovely Cisco wanted nothing to do with stealing a boat, which the rest of us agreed to do if we couldn't acquire free passage, which we were confident that perhaps we would be able to do. We went into the town and did some perusing with the merchants in order to find out where someone at the docks might be who'd be willing to take us. We did some shopping as well. Lyric got the gem that he needs in order to make a homunculus in the morning. Zeke went into the gathering house, and the barkeep there was a halfling, just like Cisco, who Cisco did not get along with, because this halfling was very much like Zeke in that manosphere kind of way, was talking very patronizingly to Cisco because he grew up in the solar fields, and called him, I believe, a pansy, among other things. So Cisco wandered off to a different section of town where he met this lovely yokai who was basically Cuphead with coffee in his head, who made him some hot toddies with whiskey and his own brain matter. So that was neat and quirky. Zeke pretty much stayed there, had many drinks and passed out, and had a bit of a vision. This time, instead of his father, of himself being similarly mistreated by the Aarakocra in the past, a memory that it seemed he had somehow forgotten, but was now recalling. And it seems that in some way he was manipulated onto this path by the Aarakocra and essentially told that if he did capture and bring them back there to the warden, that he would also, on orders from the Aarakocra, perhaps magically compelled to do so, would drop the key to their cages outside of it for them to escape. I believe that that unsettled him a little when he awoke. Patch and Larrick, went north to the dock and actually managed to book passage with this cute little Mapak character on a solar punk boat. He's very quirky. He doesn't like adventurers, but agreed to take us because I have a hint to some kind of treasure, I believe, from my destiny dice that will be along the way, which we agreed to share with him. At least for now we agreed. It really depends on what the treasure is now, doesn't it? If it's not just money, well then perhaps it's not something we can share. But we'll find out. Sometimes friendship is the greatest treasure, and you can't really share that. Everybody gets it, right? Anyways, we went from there to, I believe, the north end of town where there was a magic shop Patch wanted to visit. Since we had acquired passage, he was checking out for some different magical items, made some agreements, made some inquiries, and we found out that there was this kind of rare magical ingot that was up for grabs, they said, somewhere in the town. I believe it's called Venyo or Venat, some kind of magical ingot of that kind of variety. We were then told the best place to get information about it would be at the Gathering House, so we started to head back into that direction and ran into Cisco, who had just left the lovely tea house of Cuphead. Together, the three of us traveled back down, and he regaled us about the halfling at the Gathering House and how much he didn't like him. We found Zeke there, and he told us as well about this Venyo and how it's apparently the reward for this secret fight club that nobody talks about, that he's talking about, that he wants to participate in. So we agreed that both he and likely Milton would take combat in this kind of King of the Hill style fight. We decided that if they were fighting together for the majority of it, then perhaps one of them would be the final combatant or both, and that they would simply take one or another of each other out in the final bout of the combat, and that perhaps we would use the combat as maybe kind of a distraction in order to acquire this item, whether or not we win the combat. But that's something that we'll continue to explore next week.